All right, welcome to the podcast, everybody. I am with Jeff Demaniuk, brewing manager at Fernie Brewing. How you doing, man?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I am awesome. I don't think it's any secret that I'm a big fan of Fernie Brewing, Fernie the town, everything Fernie. So it's awesome to finally catch up to you to do the podcast. Thanks for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So, I kind of want to get a sense of where you come from. Um, it's always interesting kind of to talk about the background of a brewer because I think that kind of sometimes shines a light on how you have your philosophies on brewing and why you brew the way you do. So you went to U of A, you took science and education, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, as well. Was well
So
on my way to. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go.
Yeah, I was well on my way towards a career in teaching. Really wanted to be a high school teacher.
Yeah.
Still think about it every now and then, but it's yeah, I really enjoyed my practicums and everything in Edmonton, teaching junior high science and high school chemistry and biology. But yeah, just a student opportunity at Big Rock while I was going to school kind of turned into like a full-time gig, and then just kind of snowballed from there. Here I am today, I guess. Yeah, it's so that was about 2007. I guess I started full-time at Big Rock, and then in the lab, and then kind of got into the brewing side, and then kind of bounced around a couple of breweries, and yeah, here I am however many years later, 15 years later.
So with that background in science, how do you approach, what is your philosophy with brewing? Do you come at it from a very much a scientific angle, or how do you balance the art and the science when you're brewing beer?
Yeah, I feel like you kind of have to blend both. You have to, you need the science of keeping everything consistent and, um, maintaining quality, but then also not being afraid to play around a little bit, like, being they talk about it sometimes being like a stir fry. You just throw, hey, what's this? This is a new hop. Let's try it out. You shouldn't. It's nice to not be afraid to kind of just experiment and play around
Yeah,
while keeping that science, keeping the quality and consistency in the back of your mind the entire time.
absolutely. So with a brewery like Fernie, where they were established before you got there, how do you um I guess how do you balance those two things, which is, maintaining what was there and what made them successful, but at the same time, having some fun so that it's not mundane day to day and just, repeating recipes and repeating recipes. Do you have an avenue for kind of creativity there?
Yeah, like you said, it was a pretty good opportunity to come into where it was already, my dad had, uh, you know, built a pretty good thing going on the brewing side and had some really good recipes, some really good core beers. All of Derek and Jesse, know really well, are big parts of the company. Paul Graham, we've got quite a few people that are still here and some new people who are awesome. So we had, all the cores in place, and then it's kind of nice having, Murray, and Murray is the head honcho of Fernie Brewing. He is he kind of gives us the green light to either tweak beers or come up with new seasonals. We've always got, you come to the tasting room, we've got new seasonals all the time, and it's pretty neat. We have this new series, the Discovery series, where it's the brewers get to decide whatever we want to brew, which is kind of turned into the classic European series. But
So Murray's cool with that. If like what do you do? How do you distribute that? Is that something that you keg and distribute locally, or
that's just local, yeah.
yeah?
So that's some cans, some kegs,
So your
and all
first
the seasonals. Sorry,
your
go
first
ahead.
job was in at Big Rock, and you mentioned your dad. So was your dad kind of pivotal in getting you into the industry, or what inspired you? Because sometimes when people see what their parents do. It either inspires them to do it or inspires them not to do it. So what was it about, what did inspire you to get into the industry?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it's, some of my dad was in the industry since the 70s. Like he's seen so much, he saw so much of the, from back when everything was just macro loggers to right up to the last 10 years when there's breweries on every block basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of my earliest memories were he worked at the Molson plant in Edmonton when we lived there. I was like 3-4 years old, walking around there on the weekends with him. And then my brother was there too. He's here in Fernie now with Fernie Brewing, but he was with Grizzly Paw for a long time and stuff. So and both of us sort of entered the industry together. But yeah, so some of our earliest memories are going around through breweries, and then when we lived in Canmore in the late '90s, he was at Bow Valley Brewing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I guess they were just too early. But they didn't. Yeah, it was just a couple. Only lasted a few years, but my brother and I were child labor force there. We were making boxes and sweeping floors at 11, 12, 13 years old. But yeah, so it was something we always knew growing up. Like I knew how to make beer when I was like 11 or 12. Um, but seeing how things ended for him at Bow Valley was kind of tough.
Yeah.
So that was always in the back of my mind. And then he got a really good job in the agriculture industry. We lived in Strathmore after that, and didn't really give brewing any thought. As I said, I wanted to be a teacher, and yeah, it was a summer job. I wanted to cut grass at the Ball Diamonds in Strathmore, but they they didn't call me back. So my dad said, "I'll call Larry Kerwin at Big Rock and see if they've got anything." And sure enough, yeah, it started as a job on the packaging floor at Big Rock, a summer job in 2003, and then yeah, just kind of went from there. Eventually got in the lab as a summer student, and
Nice.
just kind of dug up his old brewing notes from when he went to brewing school in 1984. Then started talking to some of the Paul Gautreau and Jody Hamill and the guys at Big Rock that the head honchos there, and yeah, just kind of slowly figured that this would be a fun career.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So where did you go after Big Rock then?
So then went to Phillips, moved to Victoria in 2011.
So that's
And
a part that you mentioned in your notes is as your favorite experiment, or one of your
yeah,
favorite experiments. So what was Phillips like, and what was living on the island there? What was that experience like?
yeah, it was really cool. It was I never I didn't know anybody in Victoria. I'd gone there that summer. It was the first time I'd ever been there. Just on a little trip, and just checked out all the breweries there and just saw what was going on at all the breweries and the brew pubs, and thought it would be a pretty cool place to live and work. And lo and behold, a opportunity in quality control opened up to be the guy. I had a little closet lab kind of quality control, and
Quality control sounds to me like you're just cracking beers and tasting them and giving them the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Is there slightly more to that job?
that's a big part of it, but there is more to it. I don't know, Larry Kerwin always said the best lab is in your mouth,
Yeah.
which does make sense. It either tastes good or it doesn't. But no, there's a lot of science that goes into it, a lot of microbiology, making plates and
Yeah.
making sure everything's clean throughout the process, and just different quality checks.
Right. So sorry, I interrupted you there. So we're
No,
talking
it's okay.
about Phillips. So you start there. What was your position when you started there?
So that was quality control. Um, yeah, just
And so
maintaining quality consistency. Yeah.
yeah. And so how big was Phillips then? Because Phillips has grown, quite a bit over the last decade. Anyone in the beer industry, that's an obvious statement. But what was it like when you were there?
So it was still pretty big. Like it was still bigger than we are here in Fernie, but uh, not by a whole heck of a lot. And yeah, it was pretty cool, and it just sort of, so that was when they just started going into Alberta. They just started using the outdoor fermenters. Those
Right.
have been there. See their giant tank farm outside. Now there was just 6 of them, I think, before. Now I think they have 18 or something out there. But yeah, it was kind of opening, that tank space, kind of just everything just kind of ballooned. They got their canning line was just starting at that time. Um,
So Matt
but yeah,
Phillips is kind of a character. What was it like working with
yeah.
him?
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, I remember, so he flew me in for an interview and picked me up in like shorts and flip-flops and stuff. And yeah, I was like, man, this would be a cool guy to work for. And yeah, for sure. It was a great group of people all together. He's really, he assembled a really good team and was really
Yeah,
good at kind of delegating and giving everybody their space and stuff. So yeah, it was a really cool experience. We talk about the art and the science. At Big Rock, I really learned so much of the science. When you're that scale, when you're that big, you have to really hammer home consistency and
hmm,
quality. And not that, obviously that was part of my job at Phillips, so quality and consistency was huge. But um, yeah, at Big Rock, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of experimentation going on. You had trad was the same way it's been forever. Grasshopper is the same way it's been forever. Um, but at Phillips, yeah, it was just, there was a million different seasonals, and yeah, like I said, it was kind of like you find a new hop. Hey, there's a cool new hop. Let's just chuck that in there. And
totally. Well, Matt
so,
always he came to Jasper a few years ago for our festival there as an ambassador, and so got to kind of ask him some questions and listen to his story. And one of the things that strikes me is he gets kind of he goes down like rabbit holes in terms of like he geeks out on things. So
oh
I
yeah,
am imagining he kind of gave you guys the green light to kind of experiment and geek out in the same way.
yeah, for sure. There was a lot of different projects on the go at any given time. The malting plant was getting ready when I was right before I left. It was
Right.
kind of its infant stages, and CO2 reclamation was really cool. There was a guy working on that for a really long time, but yeah, there's a really good there's a lot of people there that kind of tinker with things.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different equipment to play around with.
Absolutely. So you were there for how long? 3 years, did you say?
A little bit, just under 3 years.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then where did you go there? What made you leave the island?
it was more I don't know, just kind of missed home. Everything, I don't know, Calgary's home and
Right.
all my family and friends and
Where did you
uh
go from there? Did you go like because I know you were at Trolley 5. Is that where you went after the island?
went to Village. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, which is great talking,
Reunited
Jim
with
Button.
Larry.
What's that? Yeah, reunite with Larry. Yeah, and Jim Button and I knew each other from Big Rock and kept in touch the whole
Oh,
time.
right. Nice.
Yeah, he was a big reason I went there, and unfortunately passed away last week. He's a huge part of the craft brewing industry, and not
Yeah.
only Alberta but really Canada, nationwide. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, went to Village, and that was a really good crew there. Andrew's now at Annex, and Jeremy's still there, and Kurt's at Zero Issue now. It was a really good team on the brewing production side.
Yeah, it really was.
And then yeah, and then Trolley 5 opened up, and it was a chance to kind of do my own thing, make my own recipes, and that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from Ernie and PJ and those guys, and that was good.
Well, there's so many, you start off with Big Rock and they're kind of
Yeah,
in Alberta and Canada, one of the biggest and one of the most established and really help create, craft beer as a concept, certainly in Alberta and across Canada. Then going to Phillips, which is, I think has always been seen as, one of the coolest and kind of leading edge. I think they just have a really unique culture. And then, so then you're at Village, what Jim, like to your point, what Jim was able to do there in terms of creating a unique brewery, an amazing culture. Like his vision was just something that is, I mean, to say it's unique is putting it mildly. But you kind of, it feels like you kind of lucked out with the first three breweries that you were at in terms of gaining this really good foundation of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I, you know, starting big and then going like slightly smaller as I went
Yeah.
was kind of unique in the craft brewing world. But yeah, for sure, it was. I wouldn't have it any other way. It was like I said, you really get hammer home the science. I really, really learned a lot about the science of brewing at Big Rock, and then a lot about the art of brewing at Phillips, and then just kind of went from there. Yeah.
So, so you like to your point, you're going, from bigger to smaller, and then Trolley Five being like really small when you started because they were starting off, um, right on 17th Avenue in Calgary. So, what attracted you to that as an opportunity?
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know, just getting to know Ernie and just how his energy and his passion, and for those that know him, he's got a lot of energy, a lot of passion. I just knew how much he had. Uh, anyway, yeah, I just really knew that he wanted to be really successful, and I could see it
Yeah,
there. Knowing PJ and how successful he was with all the craft beer markets and stuff, it seemed like a really really good team to be a part of.
yeah. So I
And
see
yeah,
on Ernie has on videos sometimes on social media, he takes his nunchucks out and he starts whipping his nunchucks out. Was that something he did on a daily basis just to kind of keep you motivated? And if you saw you screwing around,
I never got nunchucked, but yeah, no, he runs a tight ship, that's for
yeah,
sure. He expects a lot out of you, but it's because he wants to be successful and he wants everything to run smooth. It was yeah, I learned out so much on the business side of things, and I knew nothing about restaurants and
yeah.
stuff too. Yeah,
So
it was
what was the
yeah.
philosophy there when you started? Because it seems to me like there was almost, all of the breweries you were at until that point were established to some degree and they had a vision. With this one, with Trolley Five, was it something that you were able to maybe put a little bit more of a personal stamp on?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was uh, just on the recipe side, Ernie and I worked together, and PJ, they kind of knew what they wanted, and I kind of knew what I wanted, and it all meshed together. And uh, some of those core beers that are still there were ones that they kind of gave me the green light to sort of to put my stamp on it and come up with them myself. I did a lot of in the months leading up to move-in day when there was construction. Of course, construction's always delayed, so I had a
Yeah.
lot of time to basically do home brews and pilot brews. So yeah, that was a great experience. And yeah, so do one and then give Ernie and PJ a little taste and then kind of make a tweak from there and keep going. And then yeah, it was crazy once we actually moved into the building. It was like close to stampede time. We had to really um, kind of get beer in the tanks to have them ready for stampede. So it was really helpful that I was able to have that time to pilot some recipes. So once we kind of moved in, I felt pretty comfortable doing it on the bigger system.
Yeah. So you mentioned your dad's Gordon, and you mentioned him as a mentor of yours. When I did meet your dad a couple of times out in Fernie. What brought him back to the beer industry? Because you mentioned after Bow Valley, that he had left and went into agriculture. So how does he then get connected with Fernie?
Yeah, so it's actually yeah, it's kind of a fun story. So well, so I went to Big Rock, and my brother he was at Molson in Edmonton for a summer, and then Labatt in Edmonton for quite a while. So the two of us were in the industry, and he wasn't, and we'd kind of all get together at Christmas and whatever else, and just talk. beer, and I think it kind of got him back into it a little bit. And I go to Sherbrooke in Edmonton and buy neat looking beers, and then we'd all taste them together and stuff. And yeah, I think it kind of having the two of us in the industry kind of reignited the flame a little bit in him. Um, and when was that? 2008 or so, 2007. He kind of started doing some consulting in Saskatchewan and in Alberta for some little brew pubs, and then kind of went from there to there was a full-time job at Amber's Brewing in Edmonton.
Oh yeah.
Longer here.
What was his name? Jim Gibbons?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
owner? Yeah, yeah.
And Bent Stick is now in that building there, right
100%.
across from
Yeah.
the monolith wasn't there at that time. The big Blind Enthusiasm outfit was is across the street from there now. But yeah, so that he had a full-time job. He was doing a little bit of consulting on the side, and then when Amber's dissolved or whatever, closed, job opened up in Fernie. He was just kind of applying for a few different jobs and wanted to stay in the industry. So that was 2011, the same year I went to Victoria. And he was always a big skier too, so it was kind of worked out really well for him.
So yeah, and so like I said, when I met him, it was certainly as a brewer in Fernie. For you mentioned him as a mentor. So just what kind of person was your dad?
Oh, just anybody who met him loved him, kind of thing. He was just that, just a great person all around. Just really smart, really, really friendly. He didn't care, if you were 9 or 90, he was going to treat you the same way, kind of thing.
Right.
He was just that kind of guy, rich, poor, he didn't care, cracking the same jokes. But he was just a really good guy, just a really smart guy. Knew a lot about, had a few different careers, a lot of different skills. But at the end of the day, it was everything was just about family. So he was just a really good dad. I was happy to always taking us skiing and whatever else. And just
so you were pumped that he moved to Fernie then too, because a good excuse to get out and go skiing, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess so. I was in Victoria, so it was a little far away, but
Right.
Calgary, and I was able to get down a few times. Yeah.
So one of the things with your dad, I know, so I think Fernie just, you're celebrating your 20th anniversary as a brewery. Is that right?
Yeah, 20th anniversary. Yeah, 2003, and the Murray and Russ started in the garage. Just on Dickin Road.
That's
nearby.
awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things I know years ago going to Fernie, and this is something that I think would be a lot of breweries back then were kind of guilty of, is the reputation when I would talk to locals was that the beer, the craft beer was oftentimes inconsistent in the early 2000s when the industry was relatively new. I feel like, I'm just going to give your dad all the credit on this. I feel like when he came in, the consistency of the product coming out of Fernie was all of a sudden, the reputation was super positive. Would you agree with that your dad had a lot to do with that in terms of bringing that consistency to the brewery?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's funny when, I was talking about him looking for work there in 2011, and I applied at a few different places, and he said, "What do you know about Fernie Brewing?" And there's a head brewer, brewmaster job open there, or whatever, and that's because I come skiing with buddies in the early 2000s there, and I was like, "Wow, it's beautiful little town with a great ski hill, but the beers were inconsistent." Yeah, is exactly how I said it. Every time we'd go out, I wanted to like it, but I was like, something's a little amiss here. But he
Yeah.
went down and yeah, he met Russ and Murray and he was like, yeah, I really like this father and son group. I think I'm gonna go down. And yeah, he came in and yeah, tweaked and changed a few things and came up with some of the new seasonals and new cores and yeah, kind of away away they went. But yeah, he did he did change quite a bit and bring in more quality and consistency.
Yeah. And I will say, and I don't know if this is something you can speak to, but so I've been, I did a tour because we're doing a beer festival in Revelstoke. So I did a tour of breweries. So we went Golden, Revy, Nelson, Fernie, but I was also in Panorama the week before that. And Fernie Brewing, it's insane how almost every single mountain town has embraced you guys. Like there's like, there's a few of, this and that, but like in every, little pub you go in, there just seems to be like four or five, Fernie breweries beers there. So, I mean, that must be cool, but maybe just speak to like what makes Fernie as a brewery, special. Like what is your culture there? How would you describe it? Because it obviously is rubbing off on people, right? It's something that people love to have a part of their restaurants and breweries and or pubs and stuff.
Yeah, I think I don't, at the end of the day, we just kind of try and um, focus on outdoor activities, and you can see that in our social media, and then a lot of people here, big skiers, big bikers. So there's sort of we start with that, I guess. That's all the branding and the image and the marketing, and then from there, yeah, we just have. I think Murray comes from a sales background, so
Right.
he's taught. Then we have like a pretty good sales team that he's really mentored and especially his territory was the Kootenays, and now he's passed that on to Sam, who's really really good rep, doing really good things.
Nice.
Yeah, he was, to know him, yeah, he just really hard worker. So he was, you know, pounding the pavement, I guess, so to speak, going around the Kootenays and forming relationships with all these pubs and restaurants, and really, maintaining those relationships. And
Totally. Well, and you can see it. Like I said, I did the road trip. I've been to I feel like I've been to every mountain town in BC. And I thought that was really cool. Um, and like, and even just visiting Fernie, just the authenticity of, the people that work there. Abby's been there forever. Jesse was there forever. Sadly, he's mining now, that bastard. But it just seemed to be like a very authentic kind of culture you guys lived, kind of your ethos. Having said that, though, you did mention that you haven't been skiing very much since you moved to Fernie. So what's that all about?
yeah, it's funny how it works. I used to ski a lot more when I lived in Calgary, but it's more, it just kind of coincides with the family. My daughter
Yeah.
was born shortly after we moved down here, so I've taken her up a few times. It's crazy, like in this town, how like all the kids just start skiing as soon as they can walk and start biking as soon as they can walk, and they're ripping around the hill. Some of my daughter's classmates, you see them ripping around on their bikes, like, and they're just 5 years old. But yeah, I've taken her up a few times, and yeah, it's kind of fun. You can just kind of decide that day. Like I can see the ski hill from my place, and
Yeah.
the sun came out this afternoon. Let's just go up for an hour or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That is awesome. Is she playing hockey? Did you mention that to me?
Just doing some skating, learning
Okay.
skating. Yeah, definitely more into figure skating, I think. But yeah, it's great. She loves gymnastics, figure
That's awesome.
skating, dancing, all that sort of fun stuff.
So then what brought you? So your dad so sadly passed away while you were at Trolley 5, is that right? So what year was that?
That was 2016.
2016. Now, did you go to Fernie directly after that?
Yeah, it was. Um, yeah, because we kind of like he'd been battling cancer for a couple of years, and sort of knew we knew his time was up sort of thing, but there wasn't really any date in mind, and or obviously, and then we so yeah, I accepted a job. He was still with us. It was just the start date. Wanted to give Trolley a lot of time, and my start date was December, and then yeah, unfortunately, he passed away in September. So, but we did kind of work together a little bit on a lot of, I feel like, we always knew the two of us talked brewing all the time, and when we did, I always knew what was going on at Fernie. He always knew what was going on at the breweries that I worked at. So even though we
Right.
didn't directly work together, we kind of like indirectly worked together, and yeah.
I know talking to the team there, when you came to Fernie, um, they mentioned that there are so many similarities between you and your dad, and which I mean, I think would be a huge compliment.
Yeah,
So
sure.
how, when you think about, essentially, taking over a brewery that your dad was operating, was brewing, um, how much did you keep the same, and how much did you kind of change to put your own stamp on it?
Yeah, it was a perfect situation. I knew all the guy, Polly and Jesse and Derek. I'd met them before, and I knew that my dad had trained them up really well, and I knew that he had a really good team there, Paul Graham, all these guys, and uh, yeah, it was kind of funny because like, yeah, it was tough. Some days were tough because I had to go through like all his old notes and things, and
Hmm.
but it was funny. Talk to some of the guys around here. He was a little, I don't know what maybe disorganized is kind of the right word. So maybe that was the first thing. I can be a little like that sometimes. I got piles of papers, but he had so many like notes and papers and stuff everywhere, and I had to kind of go through that. Which yeah, some of those first few weeks, I'd have to kind of stop a little bit for reading through all this stuff and get a little emotional.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was kind of funny. He was a little bit, yeah, a little all over the place, a little bit of a nutty professor at times, that way. But yeah, there was just kind of, I didn't really have to change a lot. Obviously, yeah, like you said, the beers were great, and just a few little tweaks. Derek and I did sort of slowly tweak a few different recipes, and there were some little things that were kind of like, that we just sort of smoothed out a little bit, I guess,
Right.
so to speak. But yeah, no, it was hard at times, yeah, in those first few months, and but at the end of the day, yeah, it was really good to kind of take over his team that he really did a lot, really mentored and
Yeah.
did a lot for.
That's really cool. So you moved 2016, is that right, to Fernie?
December, yeah.
And then and you mentioned you had your daughter shortly after. So you moved to Fernie, and then essentially, started, building and raising a family right off the bat. Um, how is Fernie in terms of just it seems like, for me, like I said, I feel like it's a special town, but living there now and raising a family, what's that like?
Yeah, it's great. It's yeah, there's so much, outdoor, so much going on like with the outdoors, and uh, we get to the hill like I said, we could just kind of decide to go up to the hill that day, and cross country. We've taken up cross country skiing a little bit as a family, and
Yeah,
yeah, all the biking and hiking, and
that's
yeah, it's a
awesome.
pretty cool town, and everybody's so friendly, and there's so much. You kind of you see the same people around, and you get to know them, and the kids are they have kids the same age. You get to know them, and then you see them all over the place, and yeah, just like any small town, you kind of, it's funny, you see a lot of the same people, but you don't always know them too. Like,
Totally.
there's people and you see them on the grocery store, you talk to them, but then there's people that you like see, but you don't actually know. You're like, oh, I saw that guy there yesterday.
Yeah. So, and the thing that I think is cool is, with small towns, there's sometimes, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like sometimes in small towns, people will go out of their way either to embrace local businesses, but sometimes they go out of their way to not support local businesses. What I think is really cool about Fernie is, like I said, you go into any pub, you go into any restaurant, any of the liquor stores, and the Fernie beer is, first and foremost. And, the way that the town has embraced you guys, and the people in Fernie have embraced you, I think is really special. And I think it just speaks to, like, what you guys are doing. Um, so I think that it's really, really cool. I think that's, and so just from a perspective of like Fernie as a town, I think, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Like, that's Murray and Abby and Lenka. They did so like they're kind of well, Murray and Lenka grew up here, so they kind of know everybody and yeah, really.
Which can be good or bad,
Yeah,
because if you're an asshole, that's bad.
yeah, exactly. Fortunately, everybody, Murray and Lenka are awesome, and yeah, the whole past family kind of knows everybody, and
Yeah.
and Abby's been here for so long, and she's involved in everything in town. Yeah, it is. You mentioned the town kind of. It's really not just a Fernie Brewing thing. It's the town just supports everybody, and
Yeah.
it's kind of neat to see if somebody if there's a family that's a little bit going through some challenges. It's the town's really quick to kind of help them out and pick them back up or whatever. So yeah, it's a pretty special community. Yeah.
Has Abby got you running yet? I feel like that's kind of her mantra, is like, you have to run if you work there.
Yeah, well, I think she tried, but I think my brother's gone out with her a little bit though.
Yeah.
He's yeah, he's done triathlons and stuff. He's kind of hardcore like Abby, so
Nice.
yeah, I definitely didn't get those genes. He got some different genes from me there.
That's awesome. One of the things, so with Alberta Beer Festivals, we're doing a mountain series of festivals. So we do Banff, Jasper's next, and then Revi, which will be our first kind of, you know festival in BC. But one of the things that I really want to showcase is just the lifestyle that beer can be a part of. I think people have this, sometimes they'll have a negative, perception of, what the beer industry is. And, you know, one of the things that I want to do through the mountain series of festivals is really shine a light on, really how amazing the beer industry is, and, how it's a part of, really healthy lifestyles. And I think you guys reflect that. Obviously, Abby being a psychotic runner, it's just like, there's nothing better than beer as a recovery drink. So, we're really excited to have you guys participating in those festivals, and just kind of, like I said, we really just want to share the stories of breweries and people like you, because to me, that's what the beer industry is about. It's about, having a healthy lifestyle, raising families, and being passionate about what you do. And I think you guys just you capture that so perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's the goal.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Abby's yeah, Abby's a big part of that. And
So what are
yeah,
you
for
most
sure.
passionate about these days, like from a work perspective? Like, what when you wake up in the morning, what part of the job motivates you, gets you excited to go to work?
Yeah, I think yeah, first and foremost, it's the team that we have here, and usually, yeah, that's I'm excited to see all the faces and say hi, and especially the production side, we just everybody's I just yeah really enjoy the team here, and
And one of the things I should say, because Derek left this summer, so you obviously, with any company, you get to retain some people. Some people leave for various reasons, but you've managed to maintain that culture as you've grown. Because you've added, you mentioned when did your brother come to the brewery?
He came in September of this year.
Oh, of this year. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you added another brewer. I was just stalking you guys on social media. So how do you do that? How do you maintain that? Is it a challenge to maintain that kind of that vibe and that culture while, building your team?
Yeah, it can be a little tough sometimes because, there's so much, when you're growing and there's demand, you kind of you put a lot of pressure on the team. But yeah, I think we've just tried to. It can be tricky, but yeah, we just try and kind of keep things fun.
Yeah.
I guess, even when there's some days when it can be tough when equipment's breaking down or whatever, and you got all these orders to fill and whatever. But at the end of the day, yeah, everybody gets along, you pick each other up and stuff, and we're making beer. At the end of the day, we're just making beer. It's something that's fun. So yeah, you can kind of have a tough day, and then at the end, just have a couple beers together and laugh about it. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it can be tough to maintain that culture as you grow. But we're doing our best. It's something that's always in the back of my mind. Keeping people happy
Yeah.
and motivated, and yeah,
That's
it's
awesome, man. Well, I love what you guys do. I know even when we go camping there in the summertime, my oldest daughter both my daughters will say, is Jesse coming for s'mores? So I'll
oh,
text Jesse and I'll be like, this is actually coming from my kids, not from me. So I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to see too, but so that's just, for me, it's just been so fun watching you guys and build what you guys have and doing it in such an authentic way. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story, Jeff. It was awesome. I've been wanting to do this for so long, so it's nice that we finally got to do it.
yeah, no, thanks a lot. Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for having
And
me.
as soon as there's another powder dump in Fernie, I'll be there with some friends, so we'll come harass you at the brewery.
Yeah, sounds great. I think we're supposed to get some snow today, but then it's supposed to get cold. But I
Yeah,
think
the old, what do they call it nowadays? The polar vortex or whatever.
right.
They always use the scariest words to describe it. Like they used to just say it was cold. Now it's a polar vortex. So, okay. Well, we'll come after the polar vortex. So hopefully all the powder's still there, but it's not -50.
Yeah, tomorrow might be okay. I think it's reasonable.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah. And like you said, you have the view from your house.
yeah,
So you can text me. Yeah, text me if it's dumping at night, text me and I'll make my way out there.
nice. Yeah,
Awesome,
yeah, it
man.
was crazy. We had like this morning, we had like it just started dumping like crazy for I don't know half an hour or something. Like these big kind of blob snowflakes,
Yeah.
and it stopped. So we had
Oh, that
like
sucks. You're like, oh,
almost
this is
like
gonna
a
get good.
dusting.
Yeah. Yeah, dusting, which is nice, if you have an icy hill, there's nothing better than like a small skiff of powder on top to give you that false sense of security before you skid all the way down the hill.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Okay, man, I'll let you get back to it. I don't want you to use me as an excuse for why you don't get your work done. Although Ernie's not there with his nunchuck, so you're safe.
Yeah, no, it's all
Awesome,
good.
brother.
Yeah, you
Okay,
gotta. Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark.
thanks,
Talk to you
man.
later.
We'll chat soon.